Hello, friends. Lee McCroskey here. Once again, we are filming my Nashville studio, complete with artwork from my children in the background. And we are talking, that's for your visual entertainment. We're talking about John Maxwell's 21 laws, and we're on law number 6, the law of solid ground. Solid ground. So let's talk about that. If you want an easier way to think about solid ground, think about trust. That's a good word. Those are synonyms. So he says this about the law of solid ground. Building trust requires competence, connection, and character. And those are very alliterative. Competence, connection, character. Trust is the foundation of leadership. And if you've ever seen Maxwell talk about this topic, he does something a little bit similar to Stephen Covey. He says trust is like change or currency in a leader's pocket. And each time you make good decisions, you get more currency. You make money, you put more change in your pocket. Each time you make poor decisions relationally with someone else, you pay out some of that change to people. So if you recall, when we were in Manila together, those of you that were there, we talked about Stephen Covey's emotional bank account, which ties in beautifully to the notion of the law of the solid ground. The emotional bank account simply says this, that we make deposits in people's emotional bank accounts, and we earn trust, and we build up credit. We can also make withdrawals. We can remove that trust by doing other things which aren't productive. So how do we make deposits? Well, we make deposits with people every day. If I show up to my men's meeting in 2 hours and I'm on time and I'm prepared, then I'm putting change in those guys' pockets. They say, Lee's on time, we can trust him. He's dependable. I can make deposits with my wife, Deb, by doing little things like listening to her, like cleaning the counter, like anticipating what she needs. Those are making deposits in my wife's account. You make deposits all day long, hopefully with your clients, right? So deposits, let me list a few. Listening, keeping confidences. If someone says, hey, this is kind of between us, can you keep a secret? And if you say yes, then you need to, because that's the way you can put change in their pocket, right? Catching people doing things right, like you did that well. I like how you did that. It's like you to do that. That is making a deposit in someone's emotional bank account. That's building the law of solid ground, right? What are some other things? If you communicate quickly with clients, you email them quickly, you get back with them, that's making a little deposit. That's building solid ground. If you fix your mistakes, if there's an error of some kind, or resolve their problems, that's making a deposit. So that emotional bank account is always going up or down with people all the time. And listening is so key. This is something you should write down about listening. We'll talk a little bit about that on other calls. But people who are leaders don't listen so they can talk. They listen so they can learn. Did you get that? And I am sometimes, even though I'm getting better at listening, I'm always working on that. A lot of times as I listen, if I start going, okay, I know what they're going to say, I'm listening so I can talk, not listening so I can learn how they're feeling or what's going on or what they're upset about, right? So how do we make withdrawals? Let's talk about that for 1 second on the law of solid ground. Talking about somebody when they're not there. That is a withdrawal. You're betraying a trust. Blaming others, like saying, oh, well, geez, that was a manufacturer defect. That's not my, okay? That is a little withdrawal from a client's account. Have you ever been with somebody and you're talking and someone's name comes up and everybody kind of jumps on them? There's a lot of gossiping going on, or backbiting, or stabbing somebody in the back. That's making a withdrawal, because everybody thinks as soon as that happens, just to themselves, they think, is that how he talks about me? I really appreciated a good friend of mine from back in the day, still a good friend. We have good solid ground. Jeff Rogers, whenever the topic turned to a person and people are like, oh, well, she always, that when that started, he would always just say this out loud. I like Sarah. And everybody go, oh, well, yeah, sure, I do too. Blah, blah, blah. But he would always come to their defense by just saying, I like them. And because what he knew was that once that people started in on somebody, other folks, even though it felt good to do that, we've all done this. On the other side of it, people think, gosh, I wonder if that's how she talks about me. So ponder that, right? Let's talk. Because this is sort of semi-philosophical, I wanted to cover real important 4 habits. And I've talked about this before, and you're thinking, well, I think I know what the 4 habits are, but I'm going to cover them again because there are new people and because it's so important to the law of solid ground. And these are really what I would call, and what the strategic coach calls, the 4 habits of referability. And they're also, to me, the 4 habits of solid ground. Because if you do these 4 things, you will have more referrals and more people who want to do business with you than you can hope to get to. And that's per Dan Sullivan, a very good and great Canadian consultant, who I enjoy listening to. But he says there are 4 habits, and they're really simple. You should write these down or just commit them to memory. Number 1, he says, if you want all kinds of referrals, be on time. Be on time, because when you're on time, that builds trust. People say, oh yeah, she's dependable. She shows up for her appointments. Be on time. Number 2, do what you say. Do what you say. Have you ever been around somebody that makes promises but then never delivers? Yes. And what do you think about the first time? You go, okay, well, that's no big deal. The second time they don't deliver, you're like, something's amiss here. The third time, you're like, yeah, well, you can believe about half of what she says, because they're making little emotional withdrawals from the bank account, right? So number 1, be on time. Number 2, do what you say. Number 3, this is good, finish what you start. Finish what you start. The world is full of people who are really good at starting things, right? Remember your friends at university? Lots of them just were really good at starting classes, but then they didn't finish oftentimes because they're like, I'm tired of this. I'm bored. I don't appreciate it. What does this have to do with my life? How can I apply this? Who knows? So undependable once again. So that's the 3rd thing. You got to finish what you start. And this 4th one goes a long way too, but it sounds like it's the most minor, and it's really not. It's say please and thank you. Say please and thank you. Be courteous. Think how important it is when you call and you're getting to the gatekeeper, the secretary from somebody you're trying to reach, right? Say please, say thank you, be courteous, because they are the folks that really impact a lot of those decisions. So number 1, be on time. 2, do what you say. 3, finish what you start. 4, say please and thank you. That will build your competence, your connection, and your character with other people. Good? Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, let me cover something else with you. Because you like numbered things, I'm going to give you now 10 ways effective leaders build trust. Okay, I read an article that talked about, the headline was, workplace trust hits a new low. Negativity, despair, but here's the deal. You can have an office that flourishes with trust. You can have relationships with your clients that go great and they want to refer you to others. So let me cover real quick 10 ways to build that solid ground, 10 ways effective leaders, some of whom don't even have titles, they can grow that authentic trust at work. Okay, so here we go. Let's kind of rip through some of these. Number 1, they're good at what they do. Back to competence. Effective leaders are good at what they do. Number 2, they're passionate about their work. Now, passion isn't about cheerleading or getting all fired up and doing cartwheels in the office before you make calls. It's kind of an inner desire, a determination, and a drive. And it's the ability to kind of bounce back and stay on purpose. So passion, we've talked about that. We'll continue to talk about that. But that's another way that you can build trust with people. Number 3, people who do this well operate with self-awareness. We spend a lot of time on self-awareness. But people who are effective leaders pay attention to their words. They pay attention to their actions. They have self-alignment. They don't say one thing and do another. They're aligned. They have what people call behavioral integrity, right? And when they're aware of when they're on track or off track, they make adjustments. They don't commit to what they can't control. They don't make promises they can't keep, right? Do what you say. That was one of the big habits of referability. All right, number 4. Here's another one I can't teach. They care about people. Effective leaders build trust because they care for people. They're kind, they're considerate. They have a compassionate heart, which sounds all fluffy, but it's important, okay? They don't see people from a politically correct standpoint. They don't see people as gender or generational or, you know, he's an old guy, whatever, or stereotypical. There's no bias. They see people as individuals, right? So they care about people. Number 5, people who build trust and are good at it, they want the best for you. They want the best for you. So great managers, great leaders bring out the best in other people, and they help them develop their strengths and reach goals. Pretty key. It's not a zero-sum game. They understand that it can make a bigger pie where everybody can be successful. It's not like, well, if you're successful, then that takes away from me. Wrong. They just want to help people win. Real key. All right. What are we up to? Number 5, my absolute favorite and the absolute hardest to do. They listen. They listen. They don't listen to talk. They listen to what? Learn. You're right. So that is just, I think that's an important statement. So it is super hard to withhold your judgment as you listen to somebody. It is super hard to be present with the client if you're like worried about other things and nervous and, oh my gosh, I'm behind and how am I going to finish strong this month and I'm not hitting my goals. You got to be present with people. You've got to listen, even though all that stuff may be banging around in your head. You got to be focused. Okay. All right. Let's go to number 7. They have perspective. People who know and leaders who understand the law of solid ground have perspective. Let's see. How can I explain that? There are crises at work. There are things that don't happen. There are shipments that go to the wrong place. There are suits. They're like, where's my stuff that I ordered? But they don't yell fire every time there's a little problem or hiccup. They don't panic. They step back before they sound any kind of alarm. They kind of put setbacks in context. We call that framing the problem, reframing the problem. And you know what? They understand things don't always work despite their best efforts. It's just, I remember Charlie Jones, one of my favorite motivational speakers. He did this huge buildup. Some of you have read Charlie Tremendous Jones' book called Life is Tremendous. Well, he did this huge introduction. And he was like, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know to be successful at work. Get out a pen, get out some paper, get ready to write this down because this is the most important thing you're going to, and this went on and on. And then he says, here it is. This is the key to success. Understand this. And he said, it's 2 words. Nothing works. We're all like, what? And he said, nothing works. And that was his whole message, is that, the law of entropy, things just don't always work. They fall apart, but you have to have perspective when that happens. All right. That builds trust. All right. Law of solid ground. Leaders do this. Number 8. And I think I was okay at this in my previous life in the corporate setting. They manage direction and they manage work. They don't manage people. So they manage direction and work, not people. Let me explain. I tried to leave the fun in work by saying, okay, here's the goal, here's what we're trying to achieve, but I didn't dictate the details of how to get there. Okay? So if you're a manager and you are in charge of a group of people there at LGFG, you can set the target and sometimes let them be creative to figure out a way to get there. My job, I told them, was to clear hurdles, reduce bureaucracy, and make it easier, not harder, for people to get their work done, to hit their sales targets. So anyway, they manage direction and work. They don't manage people. They don't micromanage. All right. Number 9. Hey, I've covered this a few minutes ago, but this is important, so I'll say it again. People who are good at the solid ground, they say thank you. They say thank you. They appreciate people. They value them. Simple. I don't need to talk about that. And number 10, the last one, they see beyond themselves. They see beyond themselves to build trust. It's not about their promotion. It's not about some kind of bonus or an achievement. It's about something bigger. It's they kind of link the why, the purpose behind what's going on, and that builds trust. All of us need a reason to get up in the morning, right? And there are people who help us see the why in our work, and that matters. That builds solid ground. Okay? So if you're interested in some of this, you're like, okay, I get that. I'd like to dig in a little bit deeper. There's a book called The Titleless Leader that you might want to check out. But if you'll do some of those things, even just a few of them, you'll build the law of solid ground. If you build the law of solid ground, you'll develop that trust. If you develop that trust, you're going to have all kinds of business and all kinds of people who want to do business with you. And your repeat clients will be happier and they'll want to get more. And best of all, they'll refer you to other people. So I'm a fan of the law of solid ground. And so what does that require? Competence, connection with people, and character, right? Good. So simple concept, thoughts. Any thoughts from the crew? I'm going to send you some questions that you can dig into when we send the recording to you, and I'll include that. But anyway, anybody have any thoughts on this law? Okay. People looking mildly interested. People adjusting their hair. Okay, it's kind of quiet. Good. That means I have delivered stunning material once again. So anyway, think about that this week. Think about the 4 habits. Remember, this week, let's practice being on time, doing what we say, finishing what we start, saying please and thank you. And then that leads right into law number 7 next week, which is the law of respect. Yes, more on that later. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for paying attention. Thanks for attending. We will see you again.